Hey, this is Tuan Aditya from Lighthaven. Today we're going to be going over something that I find quite cool actually. It's a breakdown of all the movements that I think one can do when we're using double weapon. For the sake of today's video, we're going to be sticking to double weapons, double long weapons of equal length, but the same principles, the same concepts can be applied to double knife. It can also later on be applied to single stick, single knife, empty hands, because as I've said on this channel a lot, we also think of our hands as weapons. So this is double weapons, this is double weapons. Not because I think my hand is a lethal weapon, but because the same rules for coordination that exist over here will also find their way when it's this kind of weapon system where it's single stick. I'm essentially going to be breaking down all double weapon movements into 5 major categories. Now the important thing to remember is that these 5 major categories are not techniques that I want you to memorize. They're templates within which I want you to play. So none of this is set in stone, and all of this is essentially, or at least this video is essentially supposed to function as a platform for you to begin your own research into these patterns. And maybe you can even find some more double stick patterns that I may have missed, or double weapon patterns that I may have missed. First, we're just going to go through the basic movements, and then I'm going to give you a drill which will act as a template within which you can experiment, or from which you can experiment. So the first movement is going to be any sort of gunting or crossing or scissoring motion. So I'm closing, I'm opening, I'm closing, I'm opening. Any sort of these scissoring motions is going to be the first one. The second motion is going to be a following motion. So essentially when one weapon follows the other weapon. The third movement is going to be a circular motion. So where both weapons are moving in a circle. The fourth movement is going to be a simultaneous attack. So both weapons are attacking at the same time. They don't have to be attacking the same target, but both of my weapons are attacking at the same time. And the fifth is going to be any combination of these last 4. So this is typically where we have what we call as Sinawali patterns, where you have a combination of possibly crossing, following, circular motions, all combined into sort of one larger cohesive pattern. Let's just break all of these movements down a little bit more. So I'm going to be showing you a couple of different ways that I can be scissoring. So this is my the basic way that I can be scissoring. But I can also be going this way, going down, open, closing, opening, high and low. I can really play around with this motion. Switching different levels, switching different orientations of the sticks. I can even play around with which hand is on top, which hand is on the bottom. And there are I have made separate videos on the guntings in the way that I feel that they work best. I will leave links to those down below at the end of the video. You can check those out. But again, just play around with any movement where the sticks are crossing each other. The next movement are my following movements. So the easiest example of this is an angle 2, angle 1, angle 2, angle 1, angle 2, angle 1. These are just basic, really simple slashing movements. I can also go horizontal angle 1, horizontal diagonal, reverse diagonal diagonal, reverse diagonal diagonal. I can also go thrust and slash, thrust and slash. I can also go thrust and thrust and thrust, 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 thrust. I can even go vertical lines like this. I can be slashing on the same side, and even in this I can be switching levels. Circles are a little bit more straightforward. There are 2 ways that I can do this, at least 2 ways that I can think of, and everything else sort of stems off from this. The first is that the circles are being made almost in front of me, so it can be broken down into a high slash and a low slash, high slash, low slash, high slash, low slash. So as this comes high and then goes low, this hand comes high and then goes low. So this is one type of circle that I can be doing. The other type of circle is where my slashes are coming straight down center line, or can even be going across center line into an angle 2 on both hands. So either like this or like this. And again, I can make these really small depending on what I'm trying to do. I can make these bigger. I can change the orientation. Even here, I can make them small or I can make them big. Simultaneous movements also are there are a bunch of possibilities. I can have both diagonals, both sticks moving diagonal, both sticks moving or swords moving horizontal. I can come up reverse diagonal, but within within same time striking, you also have a couple of other interesting possibilities. For example, I can be going like this, adding in like maybe this is checking the stick that's coming, while this attacks with a thrust. I can also have different levels, so I can be going high and low, high and low, or I can go very close together. So one weapon would go to my opponent's weapon, the other to their hand, or one weapon would go to my opponent's weapon, the other to the head or to the leg. So there are many different ways I can play around with this simultaneous movement. And the last one is, of course, my Sinawali movements. Now, there are so many variations of Sinawali, from your basic Heaven 6 movements to your Heaven Earth movements to more complicated motions. It's really up to you how you want to play around with these Sinawali movements. You can have thrusting based Sinawalis, slashing based Sinawalis. There's so much to play around with. Reverse Sinawalis, 4 count Sinawalis, 5 count Sinawalis. I mean, the sky is the limit as to the number of variations that you have from just within these Sinawali variations. So here's a simple template by which you can train these various movements. So you can take any footwork pattern. So let's say, for example, I mean, if you've been following this channel for a while, you know how big of a fan I am for just basic ranging footwork. I'm stepping 45 degrees forward, 45 degrees forward, backwards, backwards, side, side, so 6 directions. And within these 6 directions, I can place, either I can do, every step I take, I have a different sort of coordination. So let's say that I begin with my Guntings, and then I go into my Sinawali, and then I go into simultaneous movements, and then I go into following movements, and then I go into circular movements. So this is one way that you can do it. However, in my opinion, this is not the best way of doing it, because I want to be able to get a good amount of repetition of each type of movement. This way of moving, this randomized sort of way of moving, will automatically lead me to favor some specific movements that generally I'm more comfortable with. The way that I propose you do it is that if you take like ranging footwork like I'm doing right now, all 6 directions are 1 repetition or 1 cycle. Another example is if I'm taking just open triangle, then maybe both directions are 1 cycle. If I'm taking closed triangles this way, then both directions are 1 cycle. Now, depending on how I want to structure it, if it's a ranging footwork, I automatically have, in every cycle, I have 6 steps, which means I have more chances of repetitions per cycle. If I have a closed triangle, open triangle, I have less chance of repetition per cycle. So structure it in a way where whatever you do, you get equal number of steps before you switch to the next movement. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that if I take ranging footwork with 6 steps, each step is going to have a closing and opening Gunting motion. So that means I get approximately 6 repetitions of closing and opening motions on every cycle. From here, I switch to the next one. Maybe the next one would be following motion. So that's 1 repetition, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the next one might be my circular movement. So I'm getting enough, again, 6 repetitions, whatever 1 repetition might mean to me, with every step. The next one would be my simultaneous movements, however you're going to load for them, whatever you're going to do. 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the last one would be whichever version of the Sinawali that you so choose. You get 6 full cycles or 6 full repetitions. So now this whole thing, I have now gone through each of the movements and spent an equal number of steps on all 5 movements. And so then I know that I'm not going to favor any one specific movement, and I'm going to drill everything equally. After you do this, if you find that, hey, I am struggling with maybe the following motions, then you can drill that separately. Then you come back and say, okay, I'm going to set a timer, or I am going to play a song, or whatever you use to denote time. I'm going to just work on following motions. So I'm only going to work on following motions for the entire set. So this is a good way for you to drill everything equally at the same time learn where you have your weaknesses and then drill that separately. Now once again, before we end, I want to remind you that I'm not asking you to memorize any of these patterns. What I'm giving you is a template for which to explore. Like I can go simultaneous movements like this, or like this, or like this, or like this. There's so many ways I can use these simultaneous movements. Of course, they will have different applications, different percentages of success, but they all come within that same simultaneous movement type of genre. So explore within these templates, add them with some sort of footwork, and then get enough repetition into them. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, if you learned from what you saw, please do like and share this video. Please do comment down below if you have anything to add, any questions. All of these things really do help out the school and the channel a lot. A huge thank you to all of our patrons. Thank you so much for your support. If you'd like to know more about our Patreon page and the exclusive content that we offer there, check out the link in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.